Society tells us that the happiest people are the most social ones, the ones with full calendars, buzzing phones, and endless circles of friends. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people leave those same gatherings feeling more drained than alive. Could it be that what we've been taught about socializing is not the whole story? Another assumption we rarely challenge is that intelligence automatically leads to popularity. We imagine the sharp thinker as the charismatic guest at every table. Yet, time and again, some of the most brilliant minds in history, from philosophers to scientists to writers, chose solitude over social crowds. Were they antisocial? Or did they simply value something deeper that most people overlook? And here's the final contradiction. We are told to network, mingle, and constantly be out there if we want to succeed. But isn't it strange how often the people who make the greatest impact in the world are the ones who spend the least time in noisy rooms? The paradox is striking. The less they socialize, the more they seem to contribute. This is where Stoic philosophy provides clarity. The Stoic Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus did not shy away from human connection, but they warned us about wasting life in shallow company. They believed that truth, depth, and inner peace are worth more than endless chatter. In today's overstimulated world, their wisdom feels more relevant than ever. So let's reframe the question. Smart people do not hate socializing because they hate humanity. They resist it because they recognize patterns most people ignore. The emptiness of small talk, the weight of emotional noise, the hidden games of hypocrisy and status. They know that every hour spent in meaningless interaction is an hour taken from growth, clarity, and peace. In this podcast, we'll explore 10 surprising reasons why intelligent people often step away from social gatherings. Some will sound familiar, like the irritation with small talk. Others might open your eyes to truths you've sensed but never put into words, like why genuine connection feels so rare or why peace often tastes sweeter than popularity. Welcome to StoicCraft, a space where timeless wisdom meets modern struggles. If you've ever felt guilty for preferring solitude, this episode will not only explain why, it will show you that your instincts may actually be a sign of strength. By the end, you might find yourself less concerned with pleasing the crowd and more committed to protecting your inner fortress. You walk into a room, and within minutes the cycle begins. How are you? Busy lately? Nice weather, isn't it? On the surface, these exchanges are harmless. They grease the wheels of social life, allowing people to acknowledge each other without diving too deep. But to an intelligent mind, this dance of words quickly becomes unbearable. Why? Because beneath the repetition lies a subtle theft. Time and energy are taken without anything meaningful given in return. A brilliant mind thrives on curiosity, exploration, and the exchange of genuine ideas. But small talk feels like a mask, a carefully rehearsed performance where no one is really listening. Instead of connection, it feels like disconnection, people waiting for their turn to speak rather than engaging with what is being said. Think about it. If you spend an evening discussing gossip, weather, or predictable pleasantries, what do you carry home? Nothing lasting, nothing nourishing. And intelligent people feel that loss sharply. It's not arrogance, it's hunger for depth. They want conversations that challenge perspectives, reveal truth, or at least spark laughter rooted in sincerity. When they're denied that, they feel like prisoners in a room filled with noise. I once knew someone who avoided dinner parties because of this very reason. While everyone else laughed about celebrities and neighbors, he sat quietly, not because he hated people, but because he couldn't pretend those things mattered. His silence wasn't rejection, it was honesty. And once you've seen the hollowness of polite scripts, you can't unsee it. The Stoics warned us of this centuries ago. Epictetus reminded his students not to waste words on idle talk, because language is sacred. It should serve growth, wisdom, or service. To dilute it with endless chatter is to weaken the value of speech itself. Seneca went even further, describing wasted conversations as the worst poverty. Giving away the one resource you can never get back, time. For intelligent people, that truth resonates deeply. Small talk doesn't just feel dull. It feels like betrayal of what conversation could be. It's not about expecting every exchange to be profound, but about recognizing when words are merely noise. And for those who crave meaning, silence is often more nourishing than a room full of empty chattered dots. So the next time you see a thoughtful person step back from casual banter, don't mistake it for coldness. They're not rejecting humanity, they're protecting language, energy, and the possibility of real connection. Step into a crowded room, whether it's a family reunion, a networking event, or even a casual office party, and the energy hits you before a single word is spoken. The laughter, the whispers, the shifting glances, the subtle competition of who's louder, funnier, or more admired. For many people, this is invigorating. They feed off the buzz, but for intelligent minds, the same environment can feel less like a celebration and more like standing beneath a waterfall, struggling to breathe. Why? Because they don't just hear words. They sense everything beneath them. The slight hesitation in a voice, the glance that lingers too long, the forced laughter covering irritation. What others interpret as a light-hearted gathering, they experience as a storm of signals all demanding attention. And once you notice, you can't unnotice. It's as if the mind refuses to mute the static. A colleague once told me she dreaded company retreats. Everyone else came back energized, but she returned exhausted. It's not the activities, she explained. It's that my brain doesn't turn off. I notice who's jealous, who's pretending, who's angry but hiding it. It's like a radio I can't switch off. For her, socializing wasn't relaxing, it was a mental marathon. Psychologists call this heightened sensitivity. Intelligent people often process information more deeply, and emotions are no exception. What feels like excitement for one person feels like overload for another. Imagine trying to juggle 20 conversations at once, each layered with unspoken emotions, half-truths and subtle rivalries. Eventually, the weight isn't stimulating, it's suffocating. The Stoics would recognize this as a test of self-mastery. Epictetus taught that while we cannot silence the noise of others, we can decide how much of it enters our inner world. But here lies the paradox. The more perceptive you are, the harder it is to filter. Awareness can be both a gift and a burden. This is why many intelligent people retreat to solitude. Not because they dislike others, but because solitude is the only place where the signals fade, clarity returns, and the mind can finally breathe. Emotional overload is not weakness. It is the cost of seeing too much, too clearly. For the thoughtful, avoiding certain gatherings isn't laziness or arrogance, it is self-preservation. So when you notice someone slipping away from the noise, don't assume they're unfriendly. More likely, they are simply choosing peace over static, clarity over chaos. And in a world that never stops buzzing, that choice might be the wisest of all. For most people, socializing is simply part of life. Spending a few hours catching up, grabbing drinks, or attending a casual gathering feels like no big deal. But for highly intelligent people, those same hours carry a very different weight. Time, to them, is not just something to pass. It is a currency. And every currency deserves to be invested wisely. Picture this. 2 hours spent in small talk at a noisy bar versus 2 hours alone with a book, a notebook, or a creative project. To many, the first option feels like fun and the second like isolation. But for someone who values time differently, the calculation is sharper. Those hours at the bar vanish without lasting impact. But the hours invested in reflection, learning, or creation can shape their thinking for weeks, sometimes for a life. I once knew a man whose friends teased him for rarely joining social outings. One day, He explained, "It's not that I don't like you. It's that 2 hours of chatter leaves me emptier, while 2 hours of reading leaves me transformed." His words weren't arrogance. They were clarity. He wasn't rejecting friendship, he was simply aware of opportunity cost. This mindset becomes even stronger for those in their 30s and 40s. At this stage of life, time feels finite. Responsibilities, career, family, health remind us that every hour counts. Intelligent people, perhaps more than others, wage choice. Will this gathering bring growth, joy, or real connection? If the answer is no, it feels less like fun and more like theft. The Stoics captured this truth centuries ago. Seneca wrote that people guard their money more fiercely than their hours, yet time is the one resource that, once spent, can never be earned back. To waste it in empty company is, in his view, the greatest poverty. Intelligent minds live by this principle almost instinctively. This doesn't mean they never enjoy leisure or light-hearted moments. It means they recognize the trade-off. Every yes to meaningless distraction is a no to something that could have nourished the mind or spirit. And that awareness makes socializing feel heavy. So when smart people choose solitude over a crowded evening, it isn't coldness, it's discernment. They see time not as something to kill, but as something to honor. And in honoring it, they often achieve the clarity, creativity, and peace that others spend a lifetime searching for. Walk into almost any social gathering and you'll see it within minutes. The polite smiles that hide irritation. The exaggerated compliments that sound warm but ring hollow. The conversations that sparkle on the surface yet carry no substance underneath. For many, this is just how socializing works. It's a kind of unspoken agreement, keep things pleasant, even if it means pretending. But for intelligent people, this game of masks is intolerable. Their minds are wired to spotting consistencies. They notice the small cracks between what is said and what is meant. Someone praises a colleague to their face, then mocks them as soon as they step away. A friend claps loudly for your success but quietly resents it, where others shrug it off as normal. Intelligent people see dishonesty, and dishonesty corrodes trust. Once the dissonance is visible, it cannot be unseen. I once knew a woman who refused to attend office parties. Her reason was simple. It's not the noise that bothers me. It's watching people hug someone they clearly can't stand. I can't sit there and call that friendship. Her words reveal the heart of the matter. For her, pretending was a greater burden than silence. This intolerance is not arrogance, it is integrity. Intelligent minds crave truth, even when it's uncomfortable. They are less willing to play along with rituals of flattery, gossip, or false support. And because they connect dots so quickly, hypocrisy stands out to them like a broken pattern in a puzzle. What others call just being polite, they see as dishonesty in disguise. The Stoics would have agreed wholeheartedly. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to speak only what is true and act only as justice demands. Anything else, he warned, fractures the soul. To live surrounded by hypocrisy is to breathe poisoned air. Intelligent people feel this deeply. They would rather endure solitude than suffocate in a room full of masks. So when they decline invitations or step away from group settings, it isn't misanthropy, it's self-respect. They are choosing to protect their inner clarity rather than participate in a charade. In a world where pretense is often rewarded, the refusal to play along may look strange. But it is precisely this refusal that keeps their integrity intact for them. Truth, even in silence, will always be more comfortable than words that don't mean what they say. For many people, silence feels uncomfortable. A quiet room, an empty evening, or even a walk alone can stir up restlessness. They reach for their phones, the television, or the company of others to fill the space. But for highly intelligent people, solitude is not emptiness, it is nourishment. Solitude is where their thoughts breathe, where ideas untangle, and where clarity takes shape. They don't retreat into silence because they dislike others. They retreat because solitude is the only environment spacious enough for their inner world. In noisy rooms, they are bombarded with distraction stories, emotions, politics, jokes, interruptions. Their minds scatter, but in solitude, the noise dissolves and their thinking deepens. I once knew a professor who declined most social invitations, even at the risk of seeming aloof. His explanation was simple. An hour alone with my journal gives me more insight than a dozen conversations filled with chatter. I don't avoid people, I just need to protect the space where ideas are born. His words reflect the difference between loneliness and solitude. One drains, the other restores. Psychologists call this deep processing. Intelligent people crave depth, and depth requires uninterrupted time. Solitude offers that gift. It allows them to connect dots, analyze problems, and uncover truths that constant social interaction would bury under layers of distraction. Without solitude, they feel scattered as if their mind belongs to everyone, but themselves. The Stoics recognized this long ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote that nowhere can man retreat more quietly than into his own soul. To him, solitude was not escape, but alignment with reason and virtue. For intelligent minds, it serves the same purpose: a return to the inner fortress where wisdom is cultivated. This is why socializing often feels less like pleasure and more like intrusion. It interrupts the sacred ground of thought, the very soil where creativity and clarity grow. Intelligent people know that without solitude, they cannot produce their best work, live with integrity, or maintain peace of mind. So when they choose an evening alone over a crowded event, it's not antisocial behavior. It is devotion to the quiet space that sustains them. And in a culture that constantly glorifies busyness, their choice reminds us that true strength often grows in silence, not noise. Step into almost any social setting: a workplace mixer, a family dinner, even a neighborhood barbecue, and the same pattern emerges. Invisible ladders begin to form. Who commands attention? Who gets ignored? Who laughs the loudest at the boss's jokes? Who subtly drops names to signal status? For many, this is just part of social life. But for intelligent people, these unspoken hierarchies feel exhausting, even suffocating. To them, the performance is painfully obvious. Instead of genuine connection, they see posturing, adults competing for approval, influence, or validation. The conversations aren't about truth, but about rank. Who sits at the head of the table matters more than what is actually being said. And once you recognize the game, it becomes almost impossible to play it sincerely. I once knew a man who skipped every office happy hour. When pressed, he explained, "It's not the drinks I avoid, it's the way everyone suddenly transforms into performers. They flatter the manager, compete for attention, and pretend it's bonding. But it's not, its politics." His words capture why intelligent people so often step back. They are uninterested in climbing ladders that lean against meaningless walls. Psychologically, this irritation makes sense. Intelligent minds are wired to value substance over form. They notice power dynamics, subtle signals of dominance, and the way people defer to authority without questioning its worth. Where others see harmless fun, they see manipulation disguised as camaraderie. And that awareness makes the entire event feel hollow. The Stoics would have nodded knowingly. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that fame and status are fleeting, fragile as breath. Epictetus taught that true freedom comes from indifference to rank, because virtue, not position, defines a person. Intelligent people resonate deeply with this wisdom. They would rather focus on integrity and growth than on social ladders that lead nowhere meaningful. So when they avoid environments built on hierarchy, it isn't because they're antisocial. It's because they see the emptiness of the contest. What looks like bonding to others looks like performance to them. And once you see through the performance, you cannot unsee it. For them, Silence and solitude are always more rewarding than pretending to play a game they've already seen through. In a culture obsessed with titles, likes, and appearances, their rejection of hierarchy is not arrogance, it is clarity. Most people walk into a room and take words at face value. A compliment feels like kindness. An apology feels like sincerity. A smile feels like warmth. But for intelligent people, it rarely ends there. Their minds notice the subtle delay before the smile, the calculated tone in a compliment, the quick glance round the room before someone chooses their words. And what they often detect is not sincerity, it's strategy. Manipulation is woven into many social exchanges. People exaggerate to impress, flatter to gain favor, or steer conversations to test your weaknesses. Most don't notice because they want to believe the best. But intelligent people notice almost immediately. They can tell when a compliment is bait, when an apology is performance, or when concern is simply envy in disguise. Once seen, it cannot be unseen. A friend once shared why she stopped attending networking events. Every time someone asked what I did, she said, I could see them calculating what they could get from me. It wasn't a conversation, it was a transaction. Her frustration wasn't with people in general, but with the transparency of their tactics. For her, every smile felt like a strategy, every question like a probe. Psychologically, this comes from sharp pattern recognition. Intelligent minds connect present behavior with past actions, spotting consistencies and sense motives that don't match words. Where others perceive charisma, they detect manipulation. And that awareness, while protective, comes at a cost. It makes light-hearted socializing almost impossible. Once you see the strings, you can't enjoy the puppet show. The Stoics warned of this danger long ago. Epictetus urged his students to see things as they are, not as they wish them to be. This clear vision frees you from illusion, but it also strips away comfort. Intelligent people often find themselves caught in that tension. They are grateful for their awareness, but it alienates them from the joy of simply playing along. This is why they often avoid certain gatherings. Not because they dislike people, but because they dislike the games people play. They crave sincerity, and when sincerity is rare, withdrawal becomes the only honest choice. So when you see someone step back from socializing, don't assume they're unfriendly. More likely, they're simply refusing to be part of a performance. And in a world full of subtle games, that refusal is its own form of strength. At the heart of every gathering lies a promise, connection. We meet, we share stories, we laugh, we toast, all in the hope of feeling closer to one another. But for intelligent people, that promise often feels broken. It's not that they despise company, it's that true connection, the kind built on honesty and vulnerability, is painfully rare. On the surface, conversations seem pleasant enough. People swap anecdotes, compliment each other's clothes, and laugh at the right moments. But underneath, intelligent minds sense the distance. Much of it feels rehearsed, like everyone is reading from a script. People gloss over their struggles, avoid uncomfortable truths, or stick to safe topics that never touch the soul. To the thoughtful, this is not connection, it is performance. I remember a friend who once left a party early. When I asked why, she replied, I don't mind listening to people's stories, but nobody really wants to be seen. They want attention, not connection. Her words struck me because they revealed a truth many feel but rarely articulate. Attention is quick, shallow, and fleeting. Connection requires courage, honesty, and presence. And courage is rare. Psychologists note that authentic connection thrives when people allow themselves to be vulnerable. But vulnerability feels risky in a culture that rewards appearances. Intelligent people, who are quick to sense inauthenticity, find this gap especially painful. They long for relationships where words match actions, where listening is as important as speaking, and where masks are unnecessary. Because they see through pretense so easily, they also recognize how seldom people truly open up. The Stoics would remind us that this longing for authenticity is not weakness, but wisdom. Marcus Aurelius advised associating with those who make you better, a reminder that true friendship is built not on proximity, but on virtue, trust, and growth. Intelligent people live by this instinctively. This is why many of them prefer the company of a few honest souls to the noise of a crowded room. 1 hour of genuine exchange nourishes more than 10 hours of polite chatter. Once you've tasted real connection, settling for shallow imitation feels unbearable. So when smart people step back from social gatherings, it's not misanthropy. It's loyalty to the few relationships that matter and to their own need for depth. They don't reject people, they reject pretending. Every creative person knows the feeling. You're deep in thought, ideas forming, connection sparking, the outside world fading away. It's the fragile state known as flow. In that moment, distractions vanish and your mind works with effortless focus. But then a phone rings, a friend insists you come out, or a social obligation pulls you away. By the time you return, the spark is gone, and with it, the work that might have been born. For highly intelligent people, this isn't a minor annoyance. It's one of the main reasons they resent socializing. Creativity doesn't run on a schedule. Inspiration arrives unpredictably, and once disrupted, it rarely returns in the same form. What looks like a harmless evening of drinks or small talk to others feels like a theft of something irreplaceable. I once knew a writer who avoided parties during his drafting season. Friends called him reclusive, but he explained, "If I go, I'll laugh for a night and feel drained the next morning. If I stay, I might write something that will outlive me. Which choice makes more sense?" His answer wasn't antisocial, it was clarity. He recognized that protecting his flow was more valuable than pleasing others. Psychologists describe flow as a state of deep work where the brain operates at its highest capacity. Intelligent people enter this state more readily, but it also means they guard it more fiercely. For them, a single interruption can scatter hours of concentration. And like small talk, which can be resumed at any moment, inspiration once lost may never return. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca warned that nothing of value is created in a life constantly interrupted. Genius, he argued, requires not only talent, but also space room for ideas to grow without intrusion. Intelligent people live by this truth instinctively. They protect their mental flow as carefully as others guard their wealth. So when they decline invitations or step back from social life, it isn't arrogance, it's preservation. They know their best ideas are fragile flames, and every unnecessary distraction risks blowing them out. Solitude, for them, isn't isolation, it's the workshop where sparks are given the chance to burn into something lasting. At the end of the day, the deepest reason many intelligent people avoid socializing has little to do with others, it has to do with what they find in peace. After hours of chatter, gossip, or competing voices, they don't leave gatherings feeling nourished. They leave feeling hollow, as though energy was poured out, but nothing meaningful was poured back in. Yet a single evening spent quietly with a book, a journal, or even their own thoughts can leave them more fulfilled than an entire weekend of parties. This truth may seem strange in a culture that glorifies busyness, extroversion, and being constantly connected. We are taught that happiness comes from crowds, laughter, and endless interaction. But intelligent people quietly rebel against this script. Their experience tells them something different. Joy often blooms in silence, not noise. Peace is not absence, it is presence. It is presence with self, presence with clarity, presence with what truly matters. I once knew a man who described this discovery perfectly. After years of forcing himself to attend every social event out of obligation, he finally began staying home. At first, Guilt gnawed at him, fear of missing out, worry about disappointing others. But over time, he realized he wasn't missing anything at all. Instead, he was gaining everything: rest, reflection, and the freedom to live on his own terms. "I'd rather spend 1 hour in real calm than 10 hours pretending to have fun," he said. His words capture the quiet wisdom of those who choose peace. Psychologically, peace restores what noise destroys. It allows the mind to reset, clears the residue of hypocrisy and manipulation, and strengthens resilience. For thoughtful people, peace is not a luxury, it is fuel. Without it, they risk burning out in a world that never stops demanding their attention. The Stoics upheld peace as the highest wealth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Intelligent people live this instinctively. They know that guarding their inner calm is not selfish, it is survival. So yes, they hate socializing not because they hate people, but because they've discovered something richer. Once you've tasted the stillness of peace, no amount of noise can compete. So now we've uncovered 10 surprising reasons why smart people often find socializing more draining than rewarding. It's not arrogance. It's not antisocial behavior. It's clarity. They see through the masks of small talk, feel the overload of unspoken emotions, value their time like treasure, and reject the shallow games of hierarchy and manipulation. They long for authenticity, guard their creative flow, and ultimately discover that peace, not popularity, is the most rewarding wealth. What does this mean for you? It means that if you've ever walked away from a gathering feeling empty instead of full, you're not broken, you're awake. If you've ever chosen a quiet evening with your thoughts over a crowded room of shallow chatter, you're not antisocial, you're protecting what matters. If you've ever sensed the emptiness in polite scripts or felt suffocated by unspoken tensions, you're not strange, you're simply aware. The world will try to convince you that you need more noise, more connections, more appearances. But the Stoic path reminds us that true fulfillment comes not from the crowd, but from the fortress within. Your strength is not in being everywhere, it is in knowing where you belong. And sometimes, where you belong is in stillness. Building clarity, protecting peace, and choosing authenticity over pretense. So ask yourself, how much of your life have you traded for noise that left you drained? And how much more alive would you feel if you began choosing peace instead? Here at StoicCraft, we believe that wisdom isn't about isolating yourself forever. It's about being intentional, knowing when to step into the world and when to step back into yourself. By embracing this balance, you live not only more wisely, but more freely. If this message resonates with you, I invite you to take action right now. Hit the like button to let the algorithm know this kind of content matters. Subscribe to StoicCraft so you never miss another lesson on applying Stoic wisdom to modern life. And in the comments, write the words, "I choose peace," not just as a response, but as a declaration that you are committed to protecting your energy, your clarity, and your inner strength. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, guard your time, protect your peace, and remember, the fortress within is where your greatest power lies.